All right. I'm back. Hello. I'm sorry. I just clipped immediately. I immediately started this recording with clipping. That's fine. That's fine. It's been a while. I'm back. I'm back, baby. Don't call it a comeback. I'm not back for long because, I'm gonna be real with you. I'm having this existential crisis about video games and their place in my life and whether or not they're gonna continue to have a place in my life, but that's a story for a different day. Today, we are here to discuss, Metroid Prime 4. That's because there are some things to discuss there. There was a lot because that's one of the games that I was really looking forward to. By the way, I'm having whiskey because I needed to. In order to tolerate the what we're going to be discussing, I thought it was appropriate. I got an email from I almost said Nintendo, but I got an email from YouTube saying that it can't verify my age a few months ago, and I didn't respond. I didn't care. But anyway, I'm old enough to drink whiskey, YouTube, so maybe you don't need to know my age, all right? Anyway, we're talking about Metroid Prime 4. It's the worst one. That's my opinion. We're going to talk about that. And I was really looking forward to Prime 4, honestly. Prime 1 was my first Metroid game in general. And it's also my favorite game in the entire Prime series. So that's kind of where I started with Metroid. I started with the Prime games, and then I went to some of the 2D games, like I went to Super Metroid, I played Zero Mission, I played a little bit of AM2R, and then Samus Returns. I didn't beat AM2R because I'm bad and it's hard, and so I didn't finish it. But I liked it for what it was. I appreciate it, I respect it. And I loved Metroid Dread. It was an incredible game. I mean, it's got some flaws, it doesn't have the greatest music and whatnot, but in general, I think Metroid Dread was a wonderful 2D game. I also played Metroid Fusion. So I've played, most of the Metroid games, right? So when the Metroid Prime 4 was announced in 2017, eons ago, I was very, very excited. However, I was also a little nervous because it restarted development 2 years later, as we all remember. The problem is, there was like the silver lining of like, oh, it's being restarted, but it's being restarted by Retro, who made the games. But the problem is Retro hadn't made a game in several years, and they hadn't made a Metroid Prime game in like a decade. And most of the staff that worked on the original trilogy just wasn't there anymore. So I was very nervous because I was like, look, it's like they may have the same name, but they're hollowed out. They're not the same, studio. Like they've been making Donkey Kong, like 2D games for a while. And then they were working on potentially some other things that maybe got canceled or whatnot. So anyway, I was a little apprehensive when I heard that it got rebooted or restarted or whatever. And this is actually acknowledged in the developer interview that was released post-game, that they hired lots of industry veterans and relied on subcontractors in order to get this game to happen. And so convenient that they wait until after the game's out to spill beans about that. And I also made a previous video about Prime 4 looking maybe a little bit too safe. The trailers didn't really seem to market the game at all until very close to release. Like there was a little bit that we got from the trailers, but it just seemed like here's a little bit from the jungle level, and here's a little bit of like the psychic abilities, and here's a little bit more from the jungle level and a little bit more from the psychic abilities. And it was just like, is there a game here? Like, is there other areas? Is there anything to reveal? And it was just a little bit strange to me. So anyway, long story short, I played the game. I beat it. I have some thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts, actually. I beat it about a week ago, and I put down all my thoughts, and we're going to go through them. So I played this on Switch 1, because I haven't gotten to Switch 2 yet. Maybe I'll make a separate video about that, or maybe not. I don't know. I probably won't do that. Just kidding. But I do have to say, even though that this is a Switch 1 game, it looks incredible. Or even though I played it on Switch 1, it looks incredible. I'm sure it looks better on Switch 2. So, you know, the art directors and the graphics people, you can disregard what I'm going to say here. You can just don't pay attention to what I'm saying, because let's be real, you guys get an A+. You did your job. You deserve all the praise in the world, because this game looks incredible. It plays like butter smooth. Like, I don't even think I experienced any frame rate drops at all on Switch 1. And I'm telling you, Switch 1, it's not great. It kind of blows chunks. It kind of sucks. So I was impressed that there were no issues with lag at all with this game. And I'm sure, obviously, it plays better on Switch 2 and looks better and runs better and all that jazz. So let's start with the opening. You know, you got this really cinematic cutscene with Samus flying in and all this. Everybody's shooting each other, and it's crazy. There's a lot going on. The ship lands. Samus jumps out. There's a lot of particle effects. There's a lot of explosions happening, and it's just a very action-packed intro, and it looks very good, very exciting. It also looks very Halo. It looks specifically like Halo 5, which I hated. I hated that game. I did not enjoy playing it, but it looks like that. And come to find out, there were 343 Halo devs on this game that made it. I don't know how many specifically, but there were devs from that game that made this game, actually. I really didn't like how much there was to scan, and yes, I've played Metroid Prime before. I know that scanning is a thing, but it seems like there's an over-reliance upon scanning in Prime 4, and it really hits you in the first area where it's just like, here's like 17 monitors, and they're each scanned differently, and they tell you basically nothing. So I felt just a general disconnect between previous Prime games. When you would scan stuff, it would usually give you what we call useful information. And in this game, most of the time, it's just telling you garbage that doesn't matter. And so it led to me not paying attention to what I'm scanning and what I come across. And then, lo and behold, foreshadowing a later area, you actually do have to pay attention to what you're scanning. And I got lost because there's so much fluff and boring crap when you scan things that I wasn't paying attention. In previous Prime games, you're getting like lore and like how things work, and it's just, there's so much filler in the scanning in this game that just, all right. Anyway, we are in the opening area, and I'm getting to ranting a little bit too much. So I thought it was interesting also in the first area that there were Metroids that were present with Sylix. Sylix is the bad guy. You wouldn't know it. You know, oops, sorry about that. I flipped my phone over and it was very loud. So Sylix is the bad guy in this game. You probably wouldn't know that because he doesn't really show up very often and he doesn't have very much to do with the plot, but he's there. I like that the Metroids possess the bosses from like a lore perspective. It seems cool. It's like, what's going on? Why does Sylix have Metroids? And it is not followed up on at all. There are basically no other Metroids in the game. Like, the bosses are quote unquote possessed by Metroids, but you don't fight Metroids. You don't get any lore about Metroids. You don't have any idea of where this is in the timeline of Metroid. Like, the Metroid component of Metroid Prime 4 is kind of just like, we're going to not talk about that. We're going to ignore that. So anyway, this was a very action-packed and exciting, and I think generally okay area of the game. It's an opening. It's not going to take you like 20 minutes to get through it. but it was also conveniently the only part of the game that they presented to people who came to play the game at demos, and it was, in my opinion, very deceptive marketing, because there's a lot of this game that they didn't show. I mean, they showed it like towards the very end in trailers, like some of the areas, but yeah, this game had a very troubled development cycle, and we're going to talk about that as we go on. So moving on to the next area, Fury Green. It was absolutely beautiful. Great music, but I noticed that it was very, very linear. And here's the thing. There's going to be a very consistent trend with a lot of the areas in this game. They're all like that. They're all beautiful. They all, not all of them, about half of them have really great music. It's like they stopped making music about halfway through, because there's like some songs, some areas that have absolute bangers. And there are other areas where it's like, it's just ambience. It's like, did you guys even like compose a track for this? Like, did you think about this at all? I don't know. And they're all very, 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 very linear. Most of this game is linear hallways, go from point A to point B. Now, in previous Metroid Prime games, you had open areas. Now, I mean, you were still limited. You had a room with a limited set of other rooms that you could go into, usually like 2 or 3. So it's not, you know, you don't have a ton of options, but you at least had other options to explore, and you might go the wrong way, and you might, you know, get a little lost and whatever, but that's fine. Like, that's part of the experience. You're supposed to explore this world, and you're supposed to be intrigued and want to learn more, and this is a very much action adventure. Go from point A to point B. You have a map. You don't need the map. I mean, I used it, but I realized just how useless it was for the most part. Like, you didn't really need it. The other thing about like the linear hallway design is like you have certain enemies that are 2 in particular that are actually very versatile in their movement, and they are not at all conducive to fighting them in linear hallways, because they move around a bunch, and Samus is slower than them, and so you're just, if there's a bunch of them in a hallway, it's really bad combat. Like, it just does not work at all. And then you meet Miles McKenzie, who is the game's Navi, however you say it, tutorial character. Extremely annoying, completely ruins the immersion. The game is honestly pretty good until Mr. McKenzie appears and ruins everything. He's just like, he will, like, for the first area, he's the tutorial character, so he's giving you tutorials, but he will not shut up at all, ever. He just like commentates on everything that you do. He tells you really stupid, obvious things like, oh, you should shoot that. I'm like, yeah, I know, it's glowing red. It's the only thing I can do. Like, obviously I know to shoot that, but he's going to tell you some really obvious stuff. But you have to deal with him, at least for this first area. The thing about him is there's a couple things. He is less bad after you get out of the first area, but he's still annoying because he chimes in over radio and he's like, hey, did you do this? You should do this. And it's like, okay. Here's the thing. Okay. I understand what the game developers are trying to do. They're trying to teach you, hey, you can do this. And we don't want you to get lost or confused. So we're going to give you this character to build the world, and he's going to kind of instruct you on what to do, so you're not confused or lost or whatever. The problem is it's so handholdy. It's like, please let go of my hand. You're gripping it really hard, and I would like to just move a little bit. Like, I can't even breathe because you're holding my hand so tight. So that's how it feels. All of the stuff that these characters do, because there are other characters, spoilers, there are other characters in this game that just tell you useless crap that you could otherwise learn yourself. See, let's just take Prime 1 as a case study here. Prime 1, you could learn through scanning the environment. You could learn through solving puzzles. You could, like, the environment would tell a story. In other words, the level design was smart enough to give you clues to figure out what's going on and what you need to do. And if you got lost, every now and then there would be a hint system, which is optional, which you could press a button. Actually, I think it did kind of annoy you. Like, it was like, hey, you should go here, and it forces you to click a button. I still think they can make it optional, where you just press a button. If you get lost for more than 30 minutes or whatever, and you're lost, you press a button, boom, it tells you where to go. If you want. But in this game, if you get lost, Mackenzie's gonna yap at you and tell you exactly where to go. So, anyway, the whole point is, the problem with these NPC characters, this is my least favorite, because they started doing this. They technically had some characters in Prime 2, but they were fairly non-intrusive. And Prime 3 was when they really started going the Halo route, where they got, like, you know, other characters that, like, they're trying to flesh out the universe. And I fundamentally don't enjoy that or agree with that at all. Same thing with the linearity. Like, Prime 3 was a lot more linear. So this feels like a continuation of that direction of things, and I just don't like that. Like, when I play a game in general, especially a Metroid game, I'm going to get lost in a world and to explore that world and to be intrigued by this alien planet, and I want to, like, figure out what's going on. And I didn't get to do that in this game. In this game, I got handheld and yanked from objective to objective and had to do a bunch of chores, and I really didn't enjoy my time with this game. So anyway, I'm sorry, I'm complaining way too much, aren't I? Let's talk about the best part of the game, the second area, Vault Forge. So Vault Forge is incredible. It's incredible visually. I think it's such a cool and unique area. It's very similar to the Sanctuary Fortress in Prime 2 or Elysium in Prime 3. You get into the area, Mackenzie's still yapping at you, but he stops because the electricity or storm or whatever is like, he can't get through, but he's able to get through a little bit. So whatever, I don't really care what the excuse is. He shut up for the majority of this area, so I was very thankful for that. And that's probably why I enjoyed it so much, to be honest, because I actually got to explore the area and I got to feel like I'm in this weird, mysterious alien world, and that's what I like about my Metroid games. Now, this area is still linear hallways. However, it is cleverly masked because there's 3 towers, and you're going from one end of one tower down an elevator to the other end, down another elevator to the other end, and so on and so forth, and then you go back up, and then you go to the next tower, and it feels less linear, even though it is literally just go from this end of the hallway to the next. The way it's structured feels like it's broken up enough to feel different. The rest of the game doesn't do that, but, you know, at least Vault Forge has it nailed down. And honestly, Vault Forge is, I don't know if it's one of the best areas in a Metroid Prime game, but it is absolutely the best in this game. There are really solid enemies and boss encounters. There's even like a cool mini boss, and the boss of this area in general is a solid boss. So there's an enemy, the Cybot, which is like this flying robot thing, which is, you know, it's a very quick, fast-paced enemy, which I think is good, but it highlights, because there's a lot of variations on these Cybots, and they all have different abilities and stuff, but it really highlights the issue that Samus just is sluggish compared to these enemies. For some reason, these enemies are a lot faster than Samus, and it makes the combat a little clunky, because I feel like in, you know, this is something that I mentioned in my previous video on this game, is like, a lot of other FPS games or action games like Doom, like the remaster of the new Doom came out in 2016, before this game was even announced. And then Doom Eternal came out a couple years later, and those are like fast-paced shooter games. And in the developer interview, they're like, well, a lot has changed in the time since we started developing this game, and the speed of which people, you know, the momentum and blah, blah, blah. This is all different since we started making this game, but we started back in blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, but Doom came out in 2016, a year before you even announced this game. So I don't even know why you think that you need to... It just kind of seemed like a little bit of a cop-out. Like, I do think Samus needs to be a little bit more tactile and versatile and quick. She still feels like the old Prime games, which is fine. Like, the old Prime games are fine, but when you're making a game in the modern era, it should probably have some of the modern innovations of modern games. And it just feels like it doesn't. Like, there were more innovations in the 2D Prime games. Like, you have... In Metroid Prime 4, you cannot teleport from one area to another. There are no fast travels. And I get it, like, that's not a thing in Metroid Prime. Okay, fine. But at least in the 2D games, like in Samus Returns and in Metroid Dread, which, need I remind you, are older games compared to Prime 5, Prime 4? We're talking about Prime 4. Compared to Prime 4, those games are, you know, they've been out for a while. Especially Samus Returns. They have teleporters in those games that like teleport you or elevators. They have multiple ways of getting you from point A to point B that isn't just backtracking. And Prime 4 failed to include any of that. Metroid Dread is like very fast with how Samus moves, and she's got the parry, and like it's just, there's a lot of things that make her feel snappy and quick. And they didn't do any of that in Prime 4. It's just, in terms of the movement, it feels just like a Prime game. And if you like that, great, I do. But this is a game that came out 20 years after the last one. I would hope that there would be new things in it. So anyway, I'm supposed to be talking about good things. I realize, like, I start talking about good things and then I just get on a tangent about all the bad stuff. Volt Forge has good music. It's got good music. It's got a really good banger song. Anyway, back to the bad stuff. Immediately, as soon as you enter the area, it tells you where to go. Like, every area in this game does this. It's like you walk into the area, and it's like, beep, 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 you should go here. Which is completely pointless because the game's so linear, it just, like, tells you where in 3D space the objective is. So, like, it doesn't matter because you're going to go there anyway. And there's no real confusion about, like, where else you could go. Like, there's literally one door, there's one room that's gonna connect to that room. Like, that's the only way you're gonna get there. So I don't even know why they bother telling you where to go. It's just, it's an example of, like, how needlessly handholdy this game is. All right, so there was a build-up to getting the bike, and I personally initially was pretty concerned about the bike thing, but I was actually, because you see Samus on a bike in the trailer and it's like, what is this? This is dumb. Like, this doesn't fit this at all. And then you see her in the desert. We'll get to the desert. I'll complain about that shortly. But yeah, there's this build up about getting a bike, and I actually, believe it or not, I was surprised. I actually enjoyed riding the bike. At least in this area, like the test tracks, like there's a few test tracks where it's kind of teaching you how to play and how to use the bike. I think it was cool. I thought it was fun. I almost wish they connected the areas with these race tracks, because the test tracks were way more fun than the desert, which is where you're going to spend most of your time riding the bike. Because the test tracks, like, there was actually, like, you know, some level of skill involved, and you, like, had to, like, I don't know, it felt like there was more to it, more intention and design behind that area. And I feel like, you know, it is weird that they're bringing a bike into the game, but it kind of works in, like, a really strange way. Like, it's fun. The bike is fun. It was just very, very poorly implemented for the vast majority of what you're actually going to do. And I also wonder if it was inspired by Hot Wheels. I know, like, maybe I sound like an insane person, but does anybody remember Hot Wheels acceleracers, like specifically the silencers, like the chrome and purple dudes that could go invisible and stuff? I felt like that inspired the bike, the design, and like the whole area with the racetracks and like the music. It just felt very like Hot Wheels. So I don't know, maybe I'm a crazy person, maybe no one makes that connection except for me, but anyway. Okay, so now let's talk about the open zone, the open area desert. It's called Soul Valley, or as I like to call it, Soulless Valley. I'm sure no one's ever made that joke before. It's really funny, and I'm very original. It is a desert. It's empty. It has no music. The bike stuff sucks. As I said, like, it would have been way better if they just did the racetrack thing between each area. Would have been weird, but it would have been at least fun. So this is one of those areas where it's like, hey, there's like basically no music. Now I know, like, there's a whole controversy, like you can get the amiibo for $30 and unlock music. You can like play, you can choose whatever track you want to play in the desert. But, you know, like, we play a game and we expect, I don't know, like there to be all of the pieces to the game there, rather than having to, you know, spend extra money to, you know, patch something that they didn't want to. Like, I don't know why there's not a song here. Like, if they play like a banger song, it would have been mildly less terrible. So what occupies this desert? There are green crystals, which you can smash into with your bike, which, by the way, that's you get green energy from green crystals. Very revolutionary, I know. But in my opinion, that it's just like a lazy knockoff of Phazon. Like, there's no lore, there's no like backstory behind like how it got there or like what it does. It's just this mysterious energy that's green, and it makes the bad guys more bad, I guess. I don't know. It was like I was just so bored by this desert, so I immediately like went to the next area. Like, I didn't spend any time. There's also a couple shrines that you can get to. There's 6 of them. And obviously this game is this open zone thing is very inspired by Breath of the Wild, but it does like nothing that Breath of the Wild does. So it's it's just an empty nothingness, and I hated it. And so I went to the next area. So as soon as I get to this area with the bike, which you technically enter this area after the Fury Green, in between Fury Green and going to Volt Forge, but you don't really get to explore it much because you don't have the bike, so that's why I'm talking about it now. So when you get to the desert, Mackenzie chimes in. He's like, "Oh, hey, you're back. Guess what? You can go anywhere." No. But guess what? That's not true. Because basically, so the desert is kind of the hub world that connects all of the areas that you could go. And so there's other areas that you need to go to get the MacGuffins to beat the game. And the problem is, when you get to a certain area, you realize that you're not actually supposed to be in that area. So, I don't know why he told me that I could go anywhere, and why they made it seem like it's, like the sort of non-linear, like Link Between Worlds type Zelda thing. But, that was a lie. That was fake news, false advertising. So that was annoying. And by the way, every time you get an upgrade, you have to go back to Mackenzie to use it. I mean, there's a couple upgrades that it just kind of gives you, like after you beat a boss or whatever. But let's say you get a new beam upgrade. In previous Metroid Prime games, you could just use the new beam, because like that's how the 2D games were. Like you get a power up and you use it, and that's that. Prime 4 does like the other M thing where it's like, we're not gonna give you permission to use this ability, even though you technically found it. You have to go back to Mackenzie, who's in the Fury Green, which means you're gonna have to leave the area that you're in, go through the desert, go through the Fury Green again, get shot out of this cannon again, which means a loading screen, because there's like a bajillion freaking loading screens. And this one loading screen from one end to the other end of the Fury Green is like the longest one in the game. I'm sure it's probably not as bad on the Switch 2 version, but on Switch 1 version, I'm not even joking, it's literally like a minute and a half that you have to sit through this really long loading screen just to go back to Mackenzie for like 2 seconds so he can give you a little cutscene about getting this upgrade, and then you go back to where you were and sit through another minute and a half of that crap. It sucks and I hate it. So, yeah, that's it. This is why I needed to do this, all right? I need to let it out. I gotta let it out, man. It makes me mad. It makes me mad. So I happened to go to the flare pool, which is the area you need to go to get the upgrade. But what's confusing is like you go there and then it blocks your path and tells you to go backwards. You get an upgrade. You go all the way back to Mackenzie and you have this fire weapon, which can't be used in the fire area. You have to go to the ice area. So I went to Ice Belt, which is the next major area of the game. It's trying to be like Fendrena Drifts, but surprise, surprise, it doesn't have any music. It doesn't have any interesting lore. It doesn't have good puzzles. The only thing that it has in common with Fendrena Drifts from Prime 1 is that it's an ice level. That's it. So this is the thing about Ice Belt. It tries to be more interesting than it really is, and it tries to deliver on something that it can't really deliver on. So, what do I mean? There is this huge mystery around this enemy that was frozen, that they were doing some kind of experiments on. And like when you get near it, it makes this really god-awful noise that's like really disturbing and alien, and it's horrifying. And like it builds up this hype about this enemy that was frozen, and like they were doing experiments on it, and like you don't know what it is, and it goes on for a long time. Like that's kind of what you're doing in this area, is you're just scanning a bunch of stuff, which normally I wouldn't mind if it were interesting, but it doesn't do anything different that the other games didn't do better. So, you know, it's building up, and finally you learn that this enemy okay, I'm sorry, I'm having a moment, all right? So when you discover this enemy that they've been doing these weird science experiments on, that's like really big and bad, it's the same enemy that you fought like twice. Like it's a reskin of the same freaking enemy, which would have been cool. Like this enemy, it's called a Griever. It would have been cool. Like the Griever is a cool enemy. It's creepy. It's like, I didn't know why they, like, this is like one of the first enemies that because like you first meet Grievers in Fury Green, and like I didn't know why it's those little alien looking dudes. The ones that look like they're from the Xenomorphs. That's what they're called. They look like Xenomorphs. But the problem is, like, because you've already met the enemy, it really takes the piss out of the whole experience, because like it's supposed to be this big, bad, scary new enemy, and actually it's just a reskin of an old enemy. Like, why didn't you just not reveal that enemy? And then there's also like a sand variant that you meet in the desert. Why didn't you just like get rid of those enemies and then put something else there, and then when you actually discover this enemy, it actually has impact because it's versatile, it's quick, it's like, it's a powerful enemy. Like, it actually kind of matters. But the entire experience was ruined because it's just another reskin of Grievers. Cybots and Grievers in general, like, they are very good enemy concepts, but the problem is there's just too many of them, and they, like I said earlier, they react faster than Samus can. And speaking of Samus's abilities, you know, I already kind of complained about how her abilities feel a little bit sluggish and dated. So in this game, there are psychic abilities in which Samus can, like, for example, like, she can drop a bomb when she's in the morph ball mode and, like, freeze it, stand back up, pick it up, and then throw it somewhere else. I thought that was a really cool concept, and it felt really good to do, like, from a gameplay perspective. And there are a lot of interesting concepts when it comes to the psychic abilities, but the reality is they just are very underwhelming and underutilized when it comes to the actual puzzles. There's, like, the psychic grapple beam, which is just the grapple beam, you know, and like the psychic lasso, and, like, they just put psychic in front of the abilities that you had in previous games, and they're like, oh, it's new and cool, but it's not. It's just the same thing. Overall, like, conceptually, there's something there, but they just didn't do anything with it. And that's the problem, is the puzzles in general in this game are so brain dead. Like, you used to get, in previous Prime games, you would get an ability that would assist you in solving a puzzle. The ability wasn't just the solution to the puzzle. In this game, in Prime 4, the ability is all you do. Like, you get into a little switch and you bomb it, or you boost it, or whatever, and that's it. That's all you do. In previous Prime games, these abilities helped you solve the puzzle. They were not the entire puzzle. It wasn't just as simple as, like, lock and key. It was like there was actually more to it. You might have had to use the morph ball bomb to move platforms up and down, but where the platforms needed to be, like, you still needed to figure that part out to get there. And, like, in this game, there's just, like, no thinking involved. It's just like you do this and then you're done. You know, it's just so brain dead. So let's say we wrap up Ice Belt, we get to the very bottom of the area after we had the underwhelming experience with the Grievers. You are rewarded with this really banger song. Like, honestly, one of the best songs in the game. When you restart the generator, that is, like, that's a hot, tasty jam if I've ever heard one, okay? So you do kind of get rewarded for the slog that is this area with a great song. And also there's really cool, just visually, like, seeing the generator go is, like, I was surprised and extremely impressed that was running on Switch. Like, it just looked really incredible. And you fight the boss. The boss is okay. And so let's move on to Flare Pool. Flare Pool was also very linear and boring, and the music was forgettable. There was music. It wasn't just complete ambience, but it was just, like, boring lava world music. I didn't really, like, when I think of Flare Pool, I think of, like, Magmore Caverns in my mind. I'm just comparing all these areas to Prime 1 areas. But, like, the point is, Magmore Caverns actually had memorable music, and this one, it's just, like, I'm trying to think of what it was, and I genuinely don't remember. It's just, like, the sound of lava or whatever. I don't remember. To illustrate just how painfully linear this game is, as I mentioned, in previous Prime games, you had actually multiple doors that you could go in at once. In Prime 4, most of the time, you only have one door that you can go in. But sometimes, you have 2 or even 3. However, anytime, literally any time that you have 3 doors that you can go in, one of them's locked because you don't have the ability or whatever. It's forcibly locked and there's no way through. One of them is a save room, and the other one is the way that you're supposed to go. So it creates this illusion of exploration, but I don't even know why they even bother doing that, because it's like, you're not fooling anybody. You're just going in a straight line from one end to the next, and Flare Pool was exactly that. It was just, there wasn't much to Flare Pool. There was these annoying characters. There was a really bad boss. Oh man, I just remembered. We got to talk about what happens at the boss. All right, so you get this ability where your bike can float over the lava for some reason, and it controls kind of janky. And so you are on this bike fighting this lava dragon, and conceptually it's really cool, but in reality the way it plays sucks. It's terrible. I hate it. So you're shooting the underbelly of this dragon thing, and then you initiate, which, like, you can't die here pretty much. Like, there's just nothing happening. Like, even if you run into the lava dragon, there's kind of like this Mario Kart, like, auto steering thing that happens where it just, like, gently moves backward and pushes you the other way. It's like, you can't, even if you run into the wall, like, the same thing happens. Like, there's no consequences to this phase of the boss. It just kind of, it's just there. You know, you just kind of go through it. Like a lot of this game, you're just going through the motions. So anyway, that happens, whatever. And then you're actually fighting the boss. And I will say, like, this is a game that was developed for Switch 1, but really it was a Switch 2 game, because there's a lot of bosses in this game that use precise aiming. And what I mean by that is, like, on the Switch 2, you have the Joy-Con, you put it down on the table, and you can use it like a mouse. And you can aim more precisely that way. So many of these bosses in this game abuse that fact. And it makes it a little difficult if you're not doing the mouse controls on Switch 2. Let's say you're playing on a Pro controller on Switch 2, or I don't know, let's say you didn't buy a Switch 2 because it's too freaking expensive, and you're playing this game on Switch 1. It's tough, because basically you would lock on and you would either use gyro or the right stick to move, to fine-tune your aiming, and that's just not very conducive to also, like, avoiding enemy attacks. And, like, anyway, all that to say, like, this boss is like the precise aiming boss, where you have to hit the specific point on the side of the face. And, you know, thankfully, he kind of slows down and lets you aim at him. But, man, it's painful. And, at least with most of these bosses, I'm learning their attack patterns, and I would die like once or twice. But the problem with this boss in particular is if you die, you have to do the first phase again, where you're on the lava, which is annoying. Oh, by the way, here's the part that really grinds my gears, okay? After the first phase of the boss, the lava dragon thing, like, it's about to kill Samus, and then Samus jumps off the bike and it just eats the bike. And so Samus keeps fighting the boss. And, like, okay, look, that sounds epic. That sounds really cinematic and dope, which it is. Until you beat the boss, and then you realize that the volcano is about to explode and you have to escape or whatever. And so, long story short, the characters that you were trying to help, they get in an escape pod, and Samus tries to escape herself, and, like, she goes the other way. And then the volcano erupts, and, like, there's this fade to black, and you don't really know what happens to the other characters. Eventually you find out that they went back to Mackenzie's base or whatever. But Samus, you just don't know. Like, how did she get out? And I kid you not, she escapes the volcano on the bike that was just eaten like 10 minutes ago. I can't. Why, dude? Like, it's such video game logic, but it's like, could they think of nothing else? Could they think of any other solution? It's just like, it's so bad. It's so lazy. Like, it makes no sense. Anyway. Okay. All right. So, I want to say a couple of things about the bosses now that I've calmed down and taken another shot of whiskey. Most of the bosses were decent, but the main downside to the bosses is that they really didn't utilize your abilities all that much. Like, there's a couple bosses, the weird plant guy in the Fury Green that uses the psychic beam, which is kind of just like that thing from SpongeBob. Does anybody remember that? Like the SpongeBob movie game or the Battle for Bikini Bottom, where you could like slow down time and shoot through a gun or what? Anyway, it's that ability where you can like slow down time and you're shooting your beams and whatever. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. So there's a couple bosses that actually use your abilities, and a lot of the bosses like require you to just like quickly dodge out of the way and then shoot and attack. And again, because this is a Prime game, I have to compare it to Prime games. So in other Prime games, you would have an ability that you would unlock in that area, which would be used to fight the boss in some way. Prime 4 pretty much never does that. Like all the bosses, all the enemies are just like bullet sponges. You just keep, and that's the only downside I will say to the bosses that I did like, which by the way, like half the bosses are okay, and the other half of them, they're not good. They're just not good. All of the bosses are entirely too long. Like you have to fight them, you have to keep shooting them for 7 eons, and if you die, you have to do it all over again, and that's not fun. It's no bueno. Nobody likes doing that. All right, so I've been complaining a lot about this game, but I want to give credit where credit is due. There is something that I actually do want to compliment about this game, and that is the shot mechanic. I thought it was actually very promising because it's kind of an evolved concept from Prime 2. So in Prime 2, you had, the dark beam and the light beam, and each one had different types of ammo. And ammo was like a new thing for Metroid in general. But if you shot enemies with the dark beam, you would get light beam ammo. If you shot enemies with the light beam, you would get dark beam ammo. So it kind of incentivized you to kind of switch them off and use different beams against different types of enemies depending on where you are. And I thought it was an interesting concept. And so in Prime 4, they kind of iterate on this. You don't really get new quote-unquote beams. You get missiles, and then fire shot, ice shot, and electricity shot, which use, you've got your missiles, which are a separate type of ammo, but you've got shot ammo, which is also a different type of ammo. And then you have like your basic beam. So you're never going to run out of your basic beam. And I thought it was really cool because it kind of incorporated the different beam mechanics from previous Prime games. Because in previous Prime games, like when you got a new beam, that one basically just like replaced your previous beam and was better. But there are certain situations like in Prime 1 where it might be better to freeze an enemy. Like it might be better to freeze a Metroid and then shoot it afterwards. So there was some level of strategy between the type of weapon you would use and the enemies that you're fighting. And they sort of alluded to that here in Prime 4, but they didn't really do that all that much. Like the ice beam still freezes enemies. The electric beam is still good on, certain like the grievers in the last area. The fire beam is good on basically everything. There's not much you can do with the different shot ammos. Like there's not a lot like different weaknesses for different enemies. Like it's just not very fleshed out, and it could have been very, very fleshed out and promising, much like the psychic abilities and the puzzles and like everything. It just feels really half-baked in this game, and I don't know why it's half-baked, because they took like 8 years to make it, but whatever. Also, in terms of the allies, the mech guy was my favorite. I really liked him because he didn't talk much. I didn't have to deal with him for very long. And he's just like Hulk smash, and that's his whole personality. He's just like, I'll break this for you if you'd like. I like that. He was kind of funny. Like there was a little of like actual self-awareness and humor with that character. All right, so anyway, moving on, we're gonna go to the last area of the game. I think it's called Ancient Mines. Surprise, surprise, it was also very linear. It's literally just a straight line from one end to the other. There are grievers in this area, and they're a different variant of griever, and at this point in the game, when you've fought like 17 different variants of the grievers, they're kind of overused and played out. However, I will give this area some props. I do think it's kind of the best utilization of the characters in the game, because throughout the game you're collecting, you're making friends, you're collecting these yapper tutorial characters that are telling you what to do and fleshing out the world and plot and whatnot. But I mean, that's what I'd like to say, that, you know, in their best implementation, that's what they would be, but they're not that. They're just kind of annoying and there. So, but I will say the companionship and the sacrifices that they make in this area is kind of, I almost would say heartwarming and touching, but I didn't really care that much. They wanted me to care, but I didn't. So the boss in this area is the same thing as the lava boss. Required precise aiming. I hated it. It's very difficult to do that on the controller because he's like this spider griever thing, and he's climbing on the wall, and you're locked onto him, and you're trying to aim at the part of him that is vulnerable while he's moving, and also you're locked on and he's attacking you. It's just like there's so many movement things happening that it's really difficult to hit the thing that it wants you to hit. And this boss, like all the other bosses, is a bullet sponge, and so you have to just do a lot of damage to him and fight him for 7 eons before you actually kill him. And if you fail, well, you're gonna have to start over again and spend another 10-15 minutes just to get to the part where you died on. So yeah, I didn't like that boss. The last area of the game was kind of underwhelming. I didn't really care about it. And then you go back to the desert and you had to fight another boss, a desert boss. And it was like, I thought that last boss was terrible. The desert boss is objectively the worst boss in the entire game. It's like this sandworm thing that like comes out of the ground. And you have one ability with your bike. So basically, like, it's a game of chicken. Like this sandworm is coming at you, and then you dodge, you swerve at the last minute, and then you turn around and you shoot him in the tail to slow him down, and then you slam your bike into his tail. Which, saying it out loud, sounds really cool, but when you do that like 16 times or whatever in a row, and there's nothing different that happens, it's really, really boring. So yeah, the desert boss sucked. Again, the bike ability, good, I guess, in theory and concept, but in execution, very poor. I didn't like it. And so now we're at the part of the game where you have this in-game fetch quest. And this is kind of to be expected because, you know, every Prime game does this. They do it in different ways. Some do it in better ways than others. But, you know, I think the mech part specifically, portion of this, was pretty harmless. You did have to go back to Mackenzie to get the ability to, you know, do this. But you need to find 6 mech parts And I think like 4 or 5 of them are in the desert, and then one of them's in an area. Most of them you're going to find just by exploring the desert anyway. Most of them I had on my map, and I didn't really think it was that big of a deal, because it took like an hour, less than an hour, to find all these parts, which was fine. Now, at the same time, Mackenzie's like yapping at me like, oh, you got to get the green crystals. And I saw, you know, I knew he was saying this, and I looked on the pause menu, and there's like this green crystal bar, and like I'd been collecting green crystals throughout the game, but not very much, because as I mentioned, when I went to the desert, it sucked, so I didn't want to be there any longer than I had to. So I was just kind of going from directly one area to the next, and maybe if I happened to run into a shrine or some green crystals, I would stop. But I was not going out of my way to get green crystals, because what I thought that is like a secret ending. Like I thought that like if I got all the green crystals or whatever, then it would give like a completionist bonus at the end. Well, I learned that that was stupid, and I was a dummy, and I couldn't be more wrong, because you have to grind to collect basically every single green crystal in the desert, or what feels like that. And I didn't get any. Like my meter was like at the very bottom, at the very end of the game, and I had to spend an hour and a half just roaming in circles in the desert. Like there were parts of the desert that I didn't even go to, that the map hadn't even been filled out, because I didn't like the desert. I didn't want to spend my time there. I didn't want to do anything there, and so I just wanted to leave. But little did I know that you have to. And so if you are someone, for some reason, who is committed to playing this game, and you haven't played it yet, and you've listened to my hour-long rant, and I'm still going, whew, I'm sorry. Get the green crystals as you go, if you can. Like, go out of your way between each area to get some green crystals. And when you go into each of the temples, remember to blow up the crystals. Don't forget that, because otherwise you're going to have to grind for them at the very end of the game, and it's going to slow down the pace drastically. And at this point, I'm like, I just want this to end. I want to be done. I don't want to keep playing this game. Honestly, this specific moment, and a lot of the things that were just throughout this game that I experienced, it made me wonder if the developers just wanted to spite the player because they didn't want to make this game. And so they're like, you know what? We're going to make them suffer, because we don't want to make this game. We want to go back to whatever we were doing before Nintendo came to us about freaking Metroid Prime and held us at gunpoint and gave us a lot of money to make a Metroid Prime game. We'll get back to the whole subject of Retro Studios and their future and Metroid Prime as a franchise and all that. We'll come back to that at the very end. So I want to go ahead and talk now about Silex, end of the game, final boss, final area, all that. So the end of the game comes around. You and the gang go to Chrono Tower, which is an area that you went to at the beginning of the game. It looks cool, I guess. I don't know, I'm not really the biggest fan of like the stupid empty white tower thing. Like, it feels like they stole from Doom Eternal. What are they called? The angel characters. It feels like that area, but in Metroid Prime. Lame. It's just a lame area. You know, I think I'm mixed. I'm really mixed. I have mixed opinions about it, because it looks kind of cool on the inside, but on the outside, it looks very unoriginal and uninspired and boring. Whatever, doesn't matter. You're in there for like 3 seconds. You get on an elevator, and you get to the thing that is a teleporter that will take you back to your home planet, which is great. That's what we're here for. We're here to get out. And just as you get there, all of a sudden, out of this cryostasis pod thing comes Silex. You fought Silex twice before, but he was like a Cybot illusion thing. And I thought they were good bosses, to be honest. The second one that I played was actually a lot more intense because you fought him you had to backtrack to Volt Forge and you fight him again. And he's got this like electric ability because you're getting the electric shot or whatever. It was actually really intense when I played it because I had low health because I just sucked and I had like 3 bars of health or whatever. Fought him, kept dying, and I had to get really good at it. And it was kind of fun. I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't. Anyway, the previous Silex bosses were fun. Final boss Silex is not as fun because you, for the first phase, have to do the very precise aiming thing like every other boss. And also, you've got all your teammates there, which are helping you, and that's cool. Again, cinematically, theatrically, theoretically, it looks cool, but gameplay-wise, it sucks because they keep dying, and then you have to heal them, and if they die, then you die, and whatever. It's pretty bad. I died a couple times on this phase. Then you get this phase 2, which is, like, terrible to play and hard to look at. You're going through, like, this wormhole, and it's like this free aim, and like I can't even describe it. It's painful. And then you get phase 3, which is cinematic and intense, and I think is a decent. Silex phase 3 is a decent final boss. I actually had to learn some of his attacks and how to combat them, and that's the thing. Like, this game does a pretty good job at least the bosses. Like, there's always a way to counter things. You just have to learn what it is and what to do, and sometimes it might take you a few times to figure that out, and you might be punished because you have to play, up to that point again. But thankfully, if you die on phase 3, it starts you back at phase 2, which phase 2 is just very temporary. It's like really just to heal your health. It doesn't take very long. It's like a scripted segment that, so it's not really a real phase. So anyway, you fight Silex and you kill him and whatnot, and then you get to the end. And so let's talk about the ending. Except that I want to back up first because I want to talk about the story in general. So at the very beginning of the game, Silex breaks into this Galactic Federation outpost, and there's this weird teleporter artifact thing which teleported everyone to Vuros, which is the planet you're on. Samus gets these psychic abilities from these aliens called the Lamorn, which is, you meet them at Chrono Tower in the very beginning of the game. And by meet them, I mean you meet their ghosts because they're all dead. The Lamorn are not that interesting. Like, they try to be the Chozo, but they're not the Chozo. Like, they're just not as interesting as the Chozo because they don't really get developed all that much in terms of plot. Also, this game loses points for Hinduism, but I can't be too surprised with the little Hindu gem thing in the Samus forehead. Whatever, that's a side point. So it's also implied that the other Federation members are lost on planet Vuros, but they don't really seem like they want to escape that badly because when you find them, like, you don't really get, like, I understand it's kind of a stereotype, a cliche of like, oh, we gotta get back home. And maybe they were trying to combat that, but the thing is, like, they literally never talk about going home. Like, they're just doing their thing on this planet, and it seems like they don't really care about being lost. So that affects, like, your motivation. Like, you're going to get these teleporter keys so you can go back home, but no one really seems to care about going home. And also Silex is here too. But again, he has very little to do with the plot. He feels shoehorned in. You fight him twice. There's a couple cutscenes, like at the beginning and the end of the game, and there's like 2 mini bosses and then the final boss. And, he hates you, but you don't really know why until the very end of the game. And even that's kind of like pithy and dumb. There's this implied rivalry between Silex and Samus, and you don't know what it is, but Silex really hates Samus, and so it's like what did Samus do to Silex? Like, what did Silex do to Samus? Like, why do they hate each other? What's the big deal? Well, in reality, Silex actually used to be a Federation soldier, and he led, you see this in a cutscene towards the end of the game, he led his squadron to certain death and failed, and Samus tries to help him, and Silex is like, no, I don't want your help. And that's it. That's why he hates her. He's just like envious, I guess. That's it. Like, that's all there is to it. It's so petty and pithy, and like, if this guy really hates Samus, like, come on, like, there's gotta be more. Like, that's just so dumb and lame. Ooh. All right, so there's this other Federation soldier who cares very deeply about the Lemorne. And he cares so deeply about the Lemorne that he won't let you leave until you get the seed by grinding the green crystals or whatever. Like, again, this is what I mean. Like, in reality, in a realistic world, like, these Galactic Federation soldiers would be eager to, like, get back home, and, like, they're worried about where they are, and they would be ready to leave, and, like, they'd be telling you that. But you can literally have everything to leave except for the seed or whatever that this dude tells you that you need. So you have to grind for the green crystals because video games, and then you can leave. It's just such a hot mess. So anyway, back to the Silex thing. Silex is like, it's a cool character conceptually. Again, just like so much of this game, it's underdeveloped. And again, I said this before, I don't know how a game that has been in development for 8 years is underdeveloped. I do not understand. So, after the final phase, everyone is trying to leave. Samus defeats Silex, or that's what you think, and then she somehow magically teleports back to Viros and the Chrono Tower, and is like, we're about to leave, and like, we're gonna get the teleporter thing to take us home. And then Silex comes back somehow. And the Galactic Federation soldiers that you're quote unquote friends with or whatever, you know, your pals that you make throughout the game, they like leave the teleporter and fight Silex and protect Samus from Silex. And they're like, you need to go, just go. And so there's this quick time event, like right before you leave, where it's like you press the button to go home, and like, I'm not even ashamed to say I immediately hit A. I was like, end it. I'm ready to go. I'm done. I can't deal with this anymore. I did not hesitate to press that button because I could not stand these characters. And then you get this cutscene of these characters, like they take off their helmets or whatever, and they look at you and they're all sad and they're crying. And then they die, and then you leave, and you make it home, and that's it. That's how the game ends. I was like, are you serious? This game, like, it's so meta. It's like they wanted you to hate these characters. It's like I don't understand. It's so out of character for Samus to not care for people. But also, like, even though these people suck, like, I personally hated them, Samus would never actually do that, but that's canon. Like, that happened. They're dead, I guess. I'm not really sure. I don't actually know what happened. Maybe they're probably not actually dead, but Samus did leave. Samus was like, YOLO, see ya, I'm out. Like, that just happened. That's how the game ends. And then credits roll, and I was legitimately speechless. I was like, this is trash. This is so trash. Like, I mean, I don't care about these characters, but it was just emblematic. This is kind of like this artistic moment. To circle back to a thing that I said at the very beginning of this, I have this existential thought where I'm like, are video games even worth it anymore at this point in my life? On one hand, there's the way things are going with the industry where they just, like, Nintendo doesn't care. Like this game is one of many in the trend of lackluster sequels from Nintendo, like Pikmin 4. I was super hyped about that game, and it was not that great. Tears of the Kingdom. I didn't even finish it. I didn't even want to finish Metroid Prime 4. I spent 15 hours on this game. And it felt like I was like, how did I spend 50, like, that's not even that much time, all things considered. And I spent $70 on this game. Like, it's just completely mind-boggling to me that this is it. This is the game that you've been waiting for 8 years. This is the best they could do. This is it. And man, I'm just gonna say very obviously, this game is not worth $70. Just play Prime 1 Remastered. This game, like, I would have rather played Prime 2 Remastered than this game. It was atrocious. It commits so many game design sins, and it is so undercooked, but it's also really polished. Like, it looks good and it sounds good and feels good generally to play, but it's just appalling to me that they spent 8 years on this and it's still not any better than it actually is. So Retro Studios is effectively the Metroid Prime studio now, because they remastered Prime 1 and they made Prime 4, and there are a lot of illusions and, leaks and theories about there being a Prime 5, and maybe this is a whole new trilogy, and maybe this is a reboot. The Prime 4 through 6 or whatever is kind of a Prime reboot. But honestly, I'm not optimistic about it. Like, if this is the future of Metroid, or at least Metroid Prime, personally, I'm not interested. And if Nintendo is going to be making games that are just good enough for people to buy them, but not really good enough for them to keep, like, raving about and thinking about for years to come and trying to get their friends to play, like, if that's the Nintendo that we are dealing with now, I don't really know if I want to deal with Nintendo anymore. And so that's kind of like, to bring it full circle, like, that's why I've disappeared from the YouTubes, right? Like, spoilers alert. I have other things to do in life that are not this channel. And so I just got busy with those other things. And, I'm not broke anymore. So, like, I could buy a Switch 2 if I wanted to. But I kind of don't, because I'm having this question where it's like, these games suck. And I'm not having fun. And there's other things that I could do with my life that are way more productive than playing video games. And so that's where I am. And I know the counter argument is like, oh, we'll try this indie game, or try, do this game on Steam or whatever. It's like, no, I think I've had my fill for now. Like, maybe I'll play some old games or mods or whatever, relive the glory days a little bit and milk a little bit more nostalgia. But this game in general is emblematic of a feeling that I've been feeling for a while, that I'm just being squeezed by the video games industry to buy stuff because I'm a sucker and I'll do it. But this was honestly the last game that I cared about on Switch 1, and it was such a massive disappointment that I don't know if I'll be buying any games anytime soon. Like, that's kind of where I am, and I have a feeling that I'm probably not alone. So I'm very disappointed by this. I hope that Nintendo and Retro Studios get their act together and that things do get better, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm not optimistic about that. And I just thought this game was a massive, underwhelming failure and disappointment. So that's all I've got. Those are my thoughts for Prime 4. I'm going to go to bed now. So I hope you have a great day. If you listen to this whole thing, God bless you. Wow. I'm done. That's it. That's all I got. If you've got thoughts on this game, please share them with me. If you want to convince me to, I don't know, play games or whatever, go for it. You probably won't change my mind, but Metroid Prime 4 is the cherry on top of the stinky poo-poo hot diarrhea storm that is the games industry now, with Nintendo being at the forefront. So that's it. That's all I got. Have a nice day. Have a nice night. Hope you enjoy. Have a good day. Have a good night. Goodbye.